We are entering the first weekend of November, which means things are about to get real for college football. Things are about to get real and really, really fun. Teams are fighting for conference title berths. They're fighting for playoff spots. They're fighting for maybe just a bowl berth. And today, guys, we are here to break down the 5 underrated games, very important but underrated games entering Week 10 of this college football season, along with those ranked versus ranked matchups, which we will be predicting right here on the channel starting tomorrow. Do not miss out on that. But here are 5 games that are going to play a massive role in how some of these conference title races shape out, and maybe how the playoff race may shape out as well. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're so glad you could join us today. As always, please continue to like, to comment, subscribe, share our videos. And of course, check out everything down in the description below, including these expert picks right here over on the gridironexpert.com. We are on a 55-26 run against the spread. That's right, 55-26 run. That is, what, 29 games above 500 at 69.7%. So if you want some guaranteed winnings, if you want to take part in this big run with us that we have been just dominating this year, go sign up for those picks today. It's a full year-long subscription, so you buy now, you get it through late October of next year. This is the time to join. This is the time to hop on because we're only going to get better and get stronger and produce better results as the rest of the year goes on. Do not miss out. Go join our team today. A link for that down in the description below. So let's jump into these games, guys. Let's jump into these 5 games up here. All of them very, very significant. We'll start up here. These rankings, by the way, based on the AP poll. The playoff committee releases their first set of rankings later tonight. Don't miss out on our live stream for that. Live reactions to the committee's rankings here on the Gridiron Expert. But these rankings here are based on the AP poll because we don't have a playoff poll yet. But you look at here, I got to give love to Rutgers, right? Number 3, Ohio State at Rutgers. Huge matchup in the Big Ten East. Got to give the Scarlet Knights some love. Look, they're 6-2 under Greg Schiano. Done a phenomenal job turning this program around. And this game's interesting for a lot of different reasons, right? First is the Greg Schiano connection. He was the Ohio State defensive coordinator from 2016 to 2018 before returning to become the head coach at Rutgers. And honestly, a Rutgers win in Piscataway would create absolute chaos, not just in the Big Ten, but when it comes to the playoff race as well. It'd be massive if Rutgers could somehow pull off this upset. Fortunately, for you Rutgers fans out there, I don't think that they will. I don't think they'll be able to beat Ohio State. This game, though, could be closer than some think. Both defenses are really, really good. Each team allows under 277 yards per game. And it's really a battle of Ohio State's passing attack that's averaging nearly 300 yards per game through the air against a Rutgers secondary giving up less than 160 passing yards per game. Pretty dang good. And then Rutgers' rushing attack, which is their strength, averaging nearly 180 rushing yards per game against Ohio State's rushing defense, allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game. So 2 very strong defenses here, but ultimately Ohio State is bigger and better on both sides of the ball. They certainly have the offensive advantage with their quarterback in Kyle McCord and their star wide receivers. I like Ohio State to go in there and get this win, but I could see this game, as I said, be a little bit closer than many expect, and regardless, it's going to be one heck of an atmosphere in Piscataway. Rutgers really playing with house money now. They're 6-2, clinch bowl eligibility for the first time since 2014. Anything else that they win down the stretch, it's just a cherry on top, just a little bit extra. We hope they get one at some point over this next month. Heading over to the SEC, got Texas A&M at number 11, Ole Miss. Look, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you are rooting for LSU, right? Why wouldn't you be? You own the tiebreaker over the Tigers, and if LSU can beat Alabama on Saturday night, well, that will create a 3-way tie in the SEC West. Ole Miss would only have one conference loss to Alabama. Alabama, their conference loss to LSU. LSU's to Ole Miss. It will create chaos in the West entering those final few weeks of the seasons. But Ole Miss, for that game to even matter for them, is going to have to take care of business against Texas A&M. Look, the Rebels are a quiet 7-1, right? They're 7-1 on the year, averaging nearly 500 yards per game. But they're facing an A&M team that, while disappointing at 5-3, does have a pretty stingy defense, allowing less than 270 yards per game and only 96 yards on the ground per game. So really that's the X factor for me. Can Ole Miss, that averages nearly 200 rushing yards per game, can they generate success against this Texas A&M front 7? Can they generate success up front against the Aggies? And the way I view this game, I view this to be very similar to A&M's game against Tennessee just a few weeks ago. A game that by spread proportions is very, very small. The spread very small between the Aggies and the Rebels, about a 4 or 5 point margin here. A game between where A&M offensively definitely can't hang with the better offensive team like Tennessee was, like Ole Miss is, but their defense keeps them in the game. But ultimately, the A&M defense cracks at some point. They allow a big special teams play. They allow a big offensive play. Ole Miss survives this game in Oxford. This game eerily similar to A&M's loss in Knoxville just a few weeks ago. But the Rebels get the win. They improved 8-1. If LSU does beat Alabama, chaos will ensue in the SEC West, and the Rebels will have a prime opportunity to not just continue their quest for an SEC title, but maybe the playoff if they can beat Georgia in Athens next Saturday. Massive game on deck in Week 11. How about number 12, Notre Dame at Clemson? This, isn't the game that we all hoped for back in the preseason. I think in the preseason we were hoping this would be a top 10 matchup with playoff implications, top 15 matchup, something like that. Or at least one of these teams would be in playoff consideration, and they're not. Notre Dame is not going to go because they have 2 losses. Clemson is just tanking right now. 4-4 on the year for the Tigers, have now lost back-to-back games. It's just a shocking state for Clemson football as of right now, considering the success they've had in recent years. But you look at this game, guys, this is still a very difficult place to play. Death Valley is not an easy place to play by any means, so Notre Dame does need to be up for this. If the Fighting Irish want to find themselves in a New Year's Six bowl game by season's end, they need this win on the road at Clemson. They can't afford to sleep on them, despite the fact that Clemson has lost 2 in a row, despite the fact they are 4-4, despite the fact they are nothing like we thought they would be. What this comes down to, though, for me, is offense. Both teams have very good defenses. Who has the better offense? For me, without a doubt, it's Notre Dame. Clemson's wildly inconsistent. You never know which Cade Klubnik's going to show up. The Garrett Riley experiment has not panned out in Death Valley the way they wanted it to. But you look at Notre Dame, they're averaging over 420 yards per game with ease. 264 through the air with a great quarterback in Sam Hartman, who does have some experience playing against Clemson during his time at Wake Forest. They're averaging over 160 on the ground with Audric Estime, who has 901 yards and 12 touchdowns on the year, one of the best running backs in America right now. And again, we know Notre Dame offensively, at least I believe, will show up. Clemson, we don't know. We don't know how they'll show up. And Notre Dame defensively can match Clemson step for step. So before you say, well, Clemson's defense is going to shut down Notre Dame, well, Notre Dame can do the exact same to a lackluster Clemson offense. And at the end of the day, while Death Valley is very tough to play, it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, not going to be as daunting as it would be at night. We know Death Valley is not invincible anymore. South Carolina won there last year. We saw Florida State win there this year. Notre Dame will go into Death Valley, get this win, and improve to 8-2 as the Clemson football program continues to spiral out of control, dropping below 500. We believe they'll be 4-5 by the end of Week 10. Number 10, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. The last bedlam for the foreseeable future, and that really is a darn shame. It really is. Oklahoma now heading off to the SEC. At the conclusion of this year, this game is going to have a lot of emotions, right? Not just because it's a bitter rivalry, but because of that animosity Oklahoma State has for Oklahoma leaving for the SEC. On top of that, these are 2 teams that are in contention for a Big 12 title. Oklahoma certainly in the hunt for a college football playoff berth still. Oklahoma State would love nothing more than to play spoiler and in the process continue to move up the standings and get closer and closer to making that Big 12 championship. Because you look at this, the Sooners are 7-1, the Cowboys are 6-2, both are 4-1 in conference play. So this is a massive game. The winner stays atop the standings, the loser not necessarily out of the Big 12 title race, but certainly going to be in a very tough spot. Look at the history though. Oklahoma State, they've only won 5 times since the year 2000. They defeated Oklahoma just 5 times since 2000. Lost 28-13 last year. Both offenses are clicking to me in just different ways. Oklahoma, over 300 passing yards per game behind Dylan Gabriel. Oklahoma State, over 184 rushing yards per game behind Ollie Gordon, who has been phenomenal over these last few weeks. Over 1,000 yards already on the year and 10 touchdowns. He's rushed for at least 120 yards in each of the last 5 games and has rushed for over 200 yards in each of his last 2 games. The Sooners, on the other hand, defensively are only giving up 132 rushing yards per game, which isn't bad, but they just gave up 225 to Kansas in that stunning loss in Lawrence. And look, it feels like Oklahoma is not trending in the right direction. These are 2 teams that seem to be going in opposite directions. The Sooners barely survived UCF, barely 31-29, and then lost on the road to Kansas. They're reeling a little bit. The pressure is now on. Oklahoma State, they're peaking at the right time. While they have not played as many difficult opponents as Oklahoma has in the recent weeks, the Cowboys have still won 4 straight games. They're on a roll. One of those wins including a win over Kansas, including a win over Kansas State. So give me the Cowboys to pull off the upset in Stillwater, ruin the Sooners' playoff hopes, create chaos in the Big 12. I know many will disagree with that. They'll be shocked by that, but I like Oklahoma State in this game behind the power of the running attack. Alan Bowman playing better at quarterback each week. Mike Gundy has his team up and ready. They want to say sayonara to Oklahoma. Say, good riddance. We don't even care about you anymore, but we're going to spoil your playoff hopes in your last year in the Big 12. Good luck in the SEC. Oklahoma State gets a win in a shootout in the final bedlam for who knows how long. And finally, last game here in the Big 12, number 22 Kansas at Iowa State. Huge matchup again when it comes to the Big 12 standings. Iowa State also in that tie for first place in the Big 12 standings at 4-1. Kansas right behind them at 3-2 in conference play. So the loser of this very well could find themselves out of contention. The winner keeps their hopes for a Big 12 title alive. Kansas, as we know, is fresh off that big win over Oklahoma, a massive upset back in Week 9. Iowa State, though, they've won 4 of their last 5 games and have won each of their last 3 by at least 12 points. Now, granted, they haven't been the best opponents in the world, but they're playing some pretty dang good football. And that's really impressive, and a lot of credit to Matt Campbell, what he's done, keeping his team on track after everything that happened to the Cyclones program back in the offseason. What this comes down to is a battle between Kansas's offense that's averaging over 440 yards per game and Iowa State's defense that's giving up just 326 yards per game. Something's got to give here. What's going to happen? Will Kansas continue to roll offensively, or will Iowa State shut them down, just like they did to the Jayhawks last year in a very low-scoring game? It was like 14-11. I don't think we're going to have as low-scoring of a game this time around, but I do think the Iowa State defense will prevail in this game. The Cyclones are giving up just 19.8 points per game on the year, and they're only giving up 123 rushing yards per game. If they can go in there and bottle up Devin Neal, bottle up that Jayhawks rushing attack, I believe the secondary can do their job and force either Jason Bean or Jalen Daniels, a rusty Jalen Daniels, if he's back and healthy, into a handful of mistakes. Ames, Iowa, guys, Jack Trice Stadium, a much more difficult place to play than people give it credit for. Very underrated place to play. It's not easy. And I like the Cyclones to be hyped, ready to go. Believe it or not, at 5-3, they are a true Big 12 title contender. They find a way with the defensive advantage and home field advantage to slow down Kansas's offense. They stop the Jayhawks' momentum. Iowa State clinches bowl eligibility and keeps those Big 12 title hopes alive with an upset win over Kansas. So there you have it, guys. 5 under-the-radar games. And look, I don't even know if you can call this under the radar. We got a massive rivalry game. We got a huge game in Death Valley. Huge games in the Big Ten, the SEC, and this one right down here, Kansas and Iowa State. These two are going to be huge in determining who plays in that Big 12 championship here in about a month. So massive games on deck for Week 10. We're going to have you covered with extra analysis every step of the way, along with those ranked versus ranked matchups coming your way starting tomorrow, including Alabama, LSU, Missouri, Georgia, Texas, Kansas State, another massive Big 12 game, massive weekend in the Big 12. Do not miss out on it, guys. Hit those post notifications. And as always, please continue to like, to comment, subscribe, share the video so you don't miss out on any extra content we have for you this final month of the regular season. Check out everything down in the description below, including that 55-26 run over on the Expert Picks. Go sign up for those picks today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.